In this video, we are going to be breaking down Life is Strange Double Exposure. Now, if you guys have not beat the game or you haven't even played the first Life is Strange, which is kind of crazy because I feel like everyone has, well, we're going to be deep diving into some spoilers here, so maybe this video will not be for you. And of course, being that we do reactions, we're just going to react to everything that we witnessed in Life is Strange Double Exposure and talk about the things we liked and mostly disliked. Now, I know there's about 1,000 videos like this, like mine, that go in and talk about everything that's wrong with the game. So it's not going to be that deep into it, but there are some things that have to be said about this game because I honestly feel like they did Life is Strange franchise a disservice. A disservice. And also, does anyone else think that Don't Not should get this game back? I don't know why they gave it up in the first place or whatnot, what happened as they sold the proprietary license to Square Enix and Deck Nine, as Deck Nine has taken over Life is Strange in the past, I think after the second one, I believe. So let's get down into this. First, we have Max reprise her role, so we get to play as Max Caulfield, which is amazing news when I heard it immediately. However, yeah, this game, I can't say that the good outweighs the bad here, sadly. And like I said, before we get into it, I kind of want to talk about Life is Strange 1 and why everybody fell in love with this franchise. You had character development. Now, I really feel like this game, the first two chapters were phenomenal, which is, I think, was made by design that they've released these earlys. Of course, if you paid the extra money, and those were the best chapters of the game before it kind of derailed and got confusing. But the reason why the first one was so beloved, you could tell it was like made with passion. You had character development, like you actually learned around like people in the town, you learned about them and you got to know them, which made the last decision so much harder. Depends if you chose Bay over Bay, up to you guys. And it really felt like our choices had repercussions. I cannot say the same for Double Exposure. I also feel like with it was like really immersed into Arcadia Bay. That was a huge thing too. I really felt like we knew the town, there was places to explore, people we got to know. I just felt like there was too many NPC conversations going on that made no purpose in the game for Double Exposure. And while the game navigated well into Max's new life, as we see her 10 years later after the first storm, I thought they did pretty good, but they also kind of threw us in the lion's den. Like, we don't know these people, and the writing just felt like we were just supposed to know and feel a bond with these new characters right away, which I honestly think outside of Moses, I probably forgot about every single other character out there, except for one, and we're going to get into that. But, yeah, I felt like that was it. Like we just got thrown in and they start talking about like Safi's her best friend and she's friends with Moses, Max is teaching. It just felt like they threw us in the lion's den, but I thought they did pretty okay for navigating, 10 years later. But we cannot have emotional feelings with new characters if we don't know them. So I kind of felt like what the first one built so much to have, like you get to know these people and get to build. We didn't have that. We were just expected to care about these new people, which like I said, I really didn't care that all that much, except for Max, really, and Moses. And, you know, the first one made sense. Like, even Rachel Amber, that we didn't really see until before the storm, had more, like, people actually cared about Rachel Amber and what happened to her rather than what happens with Safi. And, seeing Max come back and she's a professor now, I didn't really get the vibes throughout the game that she was a professor. She felt more like a student. And I think it's interesting because of what happened with Jefferson from the first one, that she ended up being a photography teacher. Maybe without the folders, but of course, it just felt like we didn't get see any scenes with her teaching, and it just felt like she was more so a student, really. And I do want to preface this by saying Hannah Tell did an amazing job with the voice acting. Like, she is Max Caulfield, and Max Caulfield is Life is Strange. So this is not docking on anything that she did, but so much so the laziness in the writing. So we come back, she's working at Caledon University, and we learn that her new best friend gets shot. And since Max doesn't use her powers in so long, she has morphed it. It's basically morphed into a timeline jump, a timeline shift. She can see two parallel universes and traverse between them. So, I thought that was interesting because you can't do rewind time, I guess, so much. So, okay, I was in, right? First two chapters, diving us in, like, well, who shot Safi? Like, it was another Rachel Amber. Like, what happened to Rachel Amber? And I really liked how they set that up. Of course, graphically, the game looked amazing. I cannot deny that. I mean, everything looked beautiful, but that is not enough to get us engaged. A story needed to be there. And right when you think a story was there, the whole plot fell through. Now, I told you guys, I'm all over the place with this reaction because it was a lot of confusion at the end. So if this is kind of confusing to you, I am sorry, but bear with me. All right. So we see that Safi gets shot, and in one timeline, she is dead, and you get to talk to the people in the world that she is dead to try to figure out what happened, who were her enemies, what were the secrets that she was hiding. And then you travel to a timeline where she's alive, and those same characters that were in the same realm that you've talked to act differently in the other timeline where Safi is actually alive. Which, like I said, all of this was pretty cool, but then it came to, like, what does this game become to? You had Max getting wildly, like, weird sexual jokes thrown in there, like she's some horn dog teenager. I thought that was a weird take. Okay. Then you get thrown into the love interests, which really bother me because you can reject any of these people. You have two love interests, Amanda and Vin, and you can reject, like, I don't know, let's just say Vin, for example, and they still give you the option to romance him, which just proves our choices do not matter. There was a lot of pinnacle choices they wanted to present, like, oh, this action will have consequences. Spoiler alert, it actually doesn't. It was just full with a bunch of jargon and sentences, and that your choices didn't even matter, it didn't affect anything. And this is why I want to take it back to the first one. Your choices, even then, that little dialogue, okay, that wasn't a major decision in Life is Strange 1, actually had a difference in the game because depending on how you played it on those little decisions, Chloe could have you on the background of her phone or it could be Rachel Amber. Those are the little details I'm talking about, the little decisions that matter. This was like no one's attitude changed towards you depending on what you chose. It was just a bunch of honestly bullshit in between that didn't make any sense. And of course, as you're trying to figure out who killed Safi in the timeline to try to see if you can go back and save her, then there's Chloe Price. Now, we all fell in love with Chloe Price, Life is Strange 1, or you didn't. Honestly, it's a love hate. It's a love hate thing. But what did they do? They completely erased the fact that she could be dead, or if she's alive, she just ghosts Max, which isn't in Chloe's, behavior. As well, we got to know she was obsessed with Max. She was so pissed that Max left in the first game that they had to rekindle everything they had. I mean, Max literally, depending on your playthrough, killed a whole town just to save one girl. And what does that one girl do? Completely turns her back with a few texts and posts on social media. What is that? That is just not that is not Chloe. So they completely lazy writing, failed again. Chloe would never do that, okay? And the fact that she went to bat for Rachel Amber so much so when we met her in the first series, like there's no way this girl's just gonna be like, adios, never see you again. Okay? But I will say the interaction with the phone and the social media post was pretty cool throughout the game. But this is not Chloe. She wouldn't ghost. Like, this wouldn't be happening. Okay. And I felt like how they treat Chloe, and I'm not expecting it to be like a Chloe Max game. If that's not the direction they want to take it, then fine. But this was an injustice. It just proved that nothing mattered in the first game leading up to this. And knowing Chloe just based on the gameplay, I mean, these are characters we literally are all passionate about because we got to know them. It just doesn't line up and it doesn't make any sense. It was a lazy write off. And let's get into the people from Arcadia Bay that also, come into this game. Victoria Chase. Now, I think out of everyone, if depending on, like I said, your ending, Victoria Chase is like the only person that contacts Max via social media on the game. And, you know, that doesn't really seem likely because, once again, if you go back to your first playthrough and towards the end of the game, you can warn Victoria at the party, okay? At the party where there's two moons, you can warn Victoria about Nathan or you can choose not to warn her. If you warn her, she actually ends up in the dark room and gets killed by Jefferson. So this is another oversight that your choices truly do not matter, because Victoria may as well not have been alive in this world, in this game. So why is she the only one? And it just feels like with all the Arcadia Bay survivors that no one talks to Max. It's kind of weird, especially because they don't know about her powers or what happened. It was a freak storm. I also think that was weird. It just completely lazy writing, how they treated with Chloe and, talking to her like this blue-haired girl, like she's a nobody. It was very weird, and I just didn't care for it. I didn't like how they did that. I didn't like how they did Chloe like that. I didn't. And you know what? Safi in this new, as we're trying to figure everything out, I don't know. It just doesn't like we don't know Safi. It just didn't give me best friend vibes because again, there was no character development. We were just forced to believe that this is Max's best friend. And we go back to say, but like I said, the first two chapters had me hooked because it was like murder mystery. I think it's something that pulled us in again. In the first one, like what happened to Rachel Amber? It was what happened to Safi? Who did this? And that kind of roped us all in. But Safi and every other character fell flat for me. I think Safi should have been a protagonist from the very beginning. Um, and I just didn't care that much. I just really didn't. I thought the Maya storyline about what happened to Maya was more interesting than Safi's storyline throughout the entirety of the game. I really thought what happened to Maya was more intriguing and more important. And I just didn't care for these characters. I mean, I can't even recite half the names. They were just dull and it was just NPC conversations. And again, the love interest, if I'm pulling away each time, why are these still mattering? Like, our choices truly do not matter. All right, so we go in between timelines, like I said, all over the place. And we get to find out that there is a timeline where you meet Safi, and it's, her house is Max's house is broken into. You're trying to figure out who did it, and it's Max. But Max chases Max to figure out that it's actually Safi shapeshifting into Max. She can shapeshift into anyone that she's met in real life and, portray them to be however she wants, but she can take on their form, which is why that scene with Amanda after Max is talking to, Safi's mom, that Amanda seems a little different and a bit eager. She wouldn't be there. It was a bit out of place. And, just the interactions I think with Max and like Loretta and like I said, these people, it just felt dull and it just felt like Max was a student. It just wasn't giving any kind of faculty. She wasn't giving any faculty. And then you have Gwen, right? And Gwen, we notice later that Safi shapeshifts into Gwen to get her fired because Safi did have a book deal that was killed, which kind of started Safi's revenge tour. And her book deal got canceled and she blamed Gwen because it was Gwen that emailed. Yeah, you guys know, I'm not going to go into all this. But like I said, it was her revenge tour. So then you can either choose to stand with Gwen at one time or you can keep the flash drive and see what was on it. And I felt like throughout the game, talking to Gwen, she still kind of forgives you. So it didn't really matter if you stood with her or stood against her. Like there from the very beginning, you can choose depending on how you play it with Loretta. Gwen gets mad at you. And she hated me throughout the whole game. And yet I got her to be on my side against Lucas Colmenero at the very end. So it just proves that you can be hated and you still get what you want. And this is why I actually think True Colors succeeded. And if you told me like a few years ago that True Colors would be better than a Max Caulfield game, I'd tell you you're crazy and you're lying. But True Colors at least made it if you didn't get the people on your side or if they pissed off at you for any reason, the end game changed, right? And that was the very end to get everyone, the town to believe you, um, you know, against what happened at the mine. Those choices in your relationships mattered. This didn't matter here. Gwen hated my guts and I still got her to do what I needed. What is that? What is that? So, and I also think the shifting between timelines was super confusing. I didn't really understand. I got lost into which world I'm living in. It was a bunch of like confusion. So, like, right when we find out Sophie shapeshifts, that's when the whole game just took a shit because I was like, what world am I in? Which, I don't know, Amanda am I talking to? Which Moses am I talking to? And the whole thing was basically a cutscene. The actual core gameplay was so minimal compared to other games. And that just, it wasn't enough. Like the writing got so bad, it was forced, it was rushed. And like I said, Sophie, I just didn't care enough about that, so much so that the final scene where you get to, wait for her, or if you want to help her on her revenge, where they're doing this Marvel take now, like the Avengers. They're getting all these superhero people together, and to do what? I don't know. It was so bad, and we can't go into Marvel in this game because that is not Life is Strange. You're not doing the franchise justice. Give it back to Donut. So the last scene, guys, I was sitting there playing, and I was like, I couldn't care less. Let's just get this game wrapped up. And then at the end, Max is telling everyone, you know, basically about her powers. Like, why are you telling everyone about your powers? And they're all sitting there and they're soaking it in like nothing weird just happened. And now with the combined timelines, again, guys, I know I'm all over the place. I'm just going off the cuff here. And these are my raw reaction to everything that I've played and witnessed. And I just finished the game. So that's where my mind's at right now. And the writing was just so lazy. And at the very end, going through these doors, and it's like the repeat, rinse and repeat, it got so repetitive. It really did. It just really did. It was just lazy writing. And then at the end, you're sitting there, and Moses is basically saying, you, depending on what your choice was, you gave her a free pass, and you're like, I won't give up on her. So now we're kind of setting up Safi as this villain, I think, for the Avenger tour. I don't really care. I just don't care. And now all these special people are at this school that have these powers. Like at the very end, you see at post credits, Safi talked to Diamond. We don't even know Diamond. Again, these people were such a background NPC. I didn't care about anyone. In fact, a whole storm could just blow through, and that could be it. I didn't spend time contemplating a decision. Do you guys know what I mean? I just didn't care. And now Diamond has powers. I don't care what Diamond's powers are because I don't really care about Diamond or anybody else for that matter. So it's very odd. It's just very odd. And now all these people somehow match up here. And, another thing that really bothered me actually was the restrictiveness and claustrophobic I felt playing at Caladon. It was like fine arts building, admin, the peak where Safi got shot. That was it. At least in True Colors, you got to roam around the whole of Haven. Like you got to tour. There was a record store. There was a flower shop. It was really nice to actually roam around in True Colors. And even in Arcadia Bay, there was more to explore, more little nuggets to go find. People you get to really, build trust with them, or you don't like them. Like, you know, it really was different. And this is just not a Life is Strange game. You asked me, this was not it. And DLC like cat content? What are we doing? What are we doing? And guys, I bought the collector's edition. Okay? Wasted my money. Don't waste your money. It was literally you guys can see, I have a video. I can link that in the description. It was a waste of my money. There really wasn't anything of substance in there, much like the game. It was confusion. It was like when a show is on its final season and they just throw everything, like they just write it off so quick because the series is coming to a finale. That's kind of how it felt with me. At the end, of course, it says Max Caulfield will return. I think, like I said, I wasn't going to do a deep dive into it that much, and I just want to say with Safi shapeshifting, that was such a unique ability. I think that we could have really capitalized on it. We had a good bones for a good story, but of course, Deck 9 ruined it, and I'm not shocked. With shapeshifting, like she could literally have had trying to figure out her own murder in that timeline, because Max's shift did confuse me. I literally forgot what world I was in half the time. I had to look at my controller because it changed color on what world you were in. Okay, it was confusing. But I really think if we can shift through timelines. Max is in the post where Safi is dead, and it would have been really nice to play as Safi while she was alive, shape shifting her way to find out who killed her. I mean, to me, that would have been so good and exciting, and it's still a Max Caulfield game, but instead we take a different take with a different, it's just we get a protagonist, but Safi ended up being the antagonist, and it set her up for this villain because she's on a revenge tour, and we basically justified her behavior, and she's clearly not well with her powers, and she's gonna go wreak havoc or whatnot. I don't know. Again, I don't really care, but I think it would have been really cool to play and shapeshift to figure out clues and then work together with Max and as Max in that post-death timeline. I thought that would have been cool. The sneakiest thing Max did was get the when Alderman came in was get the camera from Moses's office. I thought that was cool. I don't know why Max didn't have an office because again, she's faculty, but we saw none of that. And so that was it. And with Alderman, he was such a fun character that I liked him. I thought he would have been a great villain. He would have been a nuisance to the investigation. I was all for it. But what do? They kill him. Okay, it's the only guy that actually died in this game, which kind of pissed me off because Safi got shot, and then you help Safi in the combined timeline, and Safi just doesn't die. That it just went by. It went by. That whole end, I kind of forgot that she was even shot to begin with. Like, where did that go? What is this game? It's all over the place. What? We forgot she even got shot at the end. And the whole like Polaroid sponsorship was crazy. Max's snapshots, it felt forced. Like it used to be in the first game, there were things you had to do in order to force you to get a picture to get the trophy, right? This was like you have one conversation, press X, next thing you know, you press circle, you have your snapshot. Yeah, she collected Polaroids, which was the collectibles, but it would have been nice to see something else with the camera rather than it just felt like a sponsorship. And yeah, we forgot about Safi. And now it was just kind of lackluster. The storm is back. It's just weird. We just didn't care. We weren't that invested. They did not get me to invest. And I think would have made a really good storyline, aside from playing as Safi, would have been Max's ability to cope because it seemed like there were times she she was struggling with her decision from the first game. And then there was times that she kind of moved on. Like you would have intensive trauma after what happened to her in the first game. And now 10 years later, it's like, yeah, she traveled alone by herself and now she's fixed. You know, she would have been more broken to see, I don't know, a spiral of Max would have been nice. But of course, like I said, Max is really the only character in this game that I cared about and Moses. But Moses even kind of faded out towards the end as a background character. We're doing like gingerbread uh missions now, which it's just kind of weird. It was like these side things that get tracked. And it just wasn't it, guys. I want to know what you guys think. I've talked long enough. If there's anything else I've missed, put it down in the comments below. Like, what did you actually think that like you about this game? I want to know. This is my raw reaction to it. And I will say the good thing is again, Max Caulfield, the voice acting is 10 out of 10. And so that was exciting, I guess. But it would have been nice if just Deck 9 would just stay far away from the series. We need it back. And if you guys have not played any other Don't Nod game, I will say tell me why. And Twin Mirrors were more exciting than Double Exposure. And if Max Caulfield wasn't in Double Exposure, I don't think I would have actually bought this game at all. But like I said, play those other two games. I still think True Colors, as flawed as it was better. And I was only here for Max really and to see how Max, Chloe, and everything from Arcadia Bay. But at the very end of the game in the combined timelines, they just threw Warren, Joyce, they threw their whole past at you, and that's it. It just didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel like Life is Strange. I don't know. I would pass on this. It was like I said, I was really disappointed. And with Max Caulfield returning to the Avengers, I can't say. It's been confirmed in the next game, probably a 2027, I think, release that they've mentioned. We shall see. But I can understand the mixed reviews and don't trust IGN that they're giving it a 9 out of 10. This was at best 4. Be better in your writing and let's do character development and stop forcing people on us that we're supposed to care about without you guys giving us any background context and a buildup of a story. All right, y'all. I will see you all here on the next one.